Today we have our esteemed guest, who is Mr. Sunil, who will be speaking about reimagining CX for the metaverse economy. So Sunil, he is one of the digital technology consultant, as well as he is an ex-regional director in IoT for AT&T. Apart from that, he is a digital co-chair for digital community group for IET Future Tech Panel, as well as he is a CII Institute of Logistics member, elite member. So, hello, sir. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you for inviting me. The reason why I have titled this Reimagining Customer Experience for the Metaverse Economy is because of the fact that in the Metaverse, it's all going to be about new experiences, whether you look at it from a consumer standpoint or from an enterprise standpoint. And today we are living in an economy of experiences, and what would differentiate one brand from the other would be superior customer experience. So with the Metaverse, the whole customer experience is bound to change for the better. And what I'm going to do over the next 45 to 50 minutes is firstly, very quickly share what are the characteristics and the layers of the Metaverse. A very quick refresher for all of you all. I understand that you already had a session on it, so I won't take too much time on that. But thereafter, I'll move to the real crux, which is all about what the brands are doing in the Metaverse space. So let me start by playing a quick video for you all. Right, so the short video clip is of a company called Beyond XR. It's an Israeli-based startup, a few years old. And what they're doing is they are building virtual showrooms and metaverse platforms for very leading brands. So some of the brands that work with Beyond XR are brands like L'Oreal, Armani, Estee Lauder. These are all big names. And so what they're attempting to do is to create virtual store experiences for their customers. They want to gamify certain things. They give the option for customers to do virtual try-ons. They can actually use some of their avatars to engage with customers. And after they have started to offer these services, and brands that are using Beyond XR have seen a significant growth in various metrics. And I just want to share some of those metrics. One being that engagement with customers have increased 400+%. That is increase in time spent by customers in the store. That's a 400% increase, significant. Second thing is their conversion. It's one thing for customers to come to the store, but how do you convert them into a buyer, right? So they've seen a 60% increase in conversion, visitors who are coming to the store and buying. And one more important metric is brand loyalty. So what they've seen is that there's been a 240% reduction in churns, right? So there are a lot more visitors coming to their store and purchasing stuff, right? So these are very, very important metrics for any brand when they're wanting to get their customers to come on their platforms and buy stuff, right? And Beyond XR is doing a great job engaging with global brands. Now having talked about Beyond XR, now what I wanted to do is the first 15 minutes maybe, I would talk about some of the layers and characteristics of the Metaverse. I'll share some examples in the industry where Metaverse is being leveraged. They see big potential with the Metaverse. Share some examples of some global brands, because when you talk about Metaverse right now, it's all about experimentation, right? So you first experiment and then over a period of time, you monetize. I'll also talk about how marketing is changing with the advent of Metaverse. The rules of marketing are changing. I'll talk about what's happening in India, what are brands in India doing, how are they leveraging Metaverse. I'll share some details of some of the startups who are working in the space, especially Web 3.0. And then towards the end, I'll tell you why the metaverse has staying power. And then I would conclude and I would then take questions. Now, there are lots of definitions that are kind of floating around when you look at the metaverse, right? So very simply putting it, it is internet in three-dimensional form. Now, I like the definition of Gartner, which says that metaverse is a collective virtual shared space created by the convergence of virtually enhanced physical and digital reality. And metaverse is persistent, providing enhanced immersive experiences. Okay, so the metaverse is a blend of both the physical and the digital worlds. So what you're trying to do with the metaverse is that your physical experiences are going to get enhanced. So when you add digital overlay on the physical world, for example, through augmented reality, your physical experiences get enhanced. On the other side, when you are interacting with digital objects on your PC or your smartphones, when you are able to represent digital objects, it could be videos, it could be pictures, it could be text in three-dimensional form. Again, your digital experience gets enhanced, right? So it is this coming together of both this, where physical experiences are much more better, digital experiences are much more better. That is what the metaverse is all about, right? And it is persistent. And what is the metaverse? You want to use the metaverse where you can embed and link content which is very, very immersive. It is a place where you can do activities. Like gaming is obviously is a very good application for that. It is a place where people can collaborate. Many organizations are using the metaverse for employees to learn and train. It is a place where you can actually build communities, right? So you want to express yourself, creative expression as they call it, a place where you can, kind of inform others, tell stories. So, and you can do it. One is through immersive experience. You could also use your phones and your PCs for that, right? Now, what are the characteristics of the metaverse? The first thing is that there are no kind of barriers between the real and digital. It is a perfect fusion of both of them. Second thing is it is persistent. You can't switch off the metaverse. It's always there. It is immersive, as I mentioned. You can use VR headsets to get into virtual world. You can use, augmented reality. It is decentralized. I'm going to touch upon it a little later. There's no single entity which has control over it. So all users would have what is called individual agency. And metaverse is just not about just having fun and experiences and sharing content and all that, right? You also need to see how you can monetize the metaverse, right? So there is an economic system that needs to run over it, right? So you have digital currencies, a crypto, which is running on blockchain platform that can kind of drive the economic system of the metaverse. And it is also about social experiences. Now, there are 7 layers of the metaverse. And what I want to do is, over the next 5-10 minutes, I'll quickly cover each of these 7 layers, but I'll spend a little more time on the experience layer of the metaverse. Okay, because as I mentioned, it is all about enhanced experiences for consumers, right? Now, when you look at experiences, today, gaming is a big industry, and you'll be surprised that in India, we have about 400 million gamers in India. Now, globally, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And in India, there are 400 million gamers. 40% of them, surprisingly, are women, which is, I was really surprised when I read about it. But gaming today can be a career option for many. There are people who can make and create very good games and get monetized for that, right? And there are a number of gaming platforms which are there today. Well-known gaming platforms are Roblox, multiplayer gaming platform. The second thing is that, when you look at the shopping experience, the e-commerce, here is a picture of what Flipkart launched. So they've launched, all of us are used to using Flipkart on our phones. You just buy stuff, pay online and all that. But what Flipkart is trying to do is they're trying to enhance their experience for their customers. So what they've done is they built something called Flipverse, which is basically an AR app on your phone. And what you do is you take your phone, and if you want to buy something which is of interest, it could be a piece of furniture, it could be a piece of clothing. The whole item that you want to buy kind of comes alive, because of the AR app. And that enhances, your whole experience in terms of how you want to buy something. and then it becomes far more easier when you can see all that in 3-dimension and all that. So Flipkart is doing that. Third is, today one can actually buy real estate using the power of Metaverse. So there is a company called Matterport, which does what is called 3D virtual towers. So sitting in the comfort of your home in any city, and you want to say buy a property in Dubai or New York, you can actually feel as though you're in that place. It gives you that experience. You can use virtual reality for that, and Matterport is very strong in that space. What happens is that the first few steps in the whole buying process, right? So today, when you want to buy real estate, you would obviously want to visit the place for the first time. But here, what you do is you can actually save on 1 or 2 visits. You can have the first experience being done virtually. And eventually, when you do comparison between all the properties that you want to choose from, when it comes to buying the final property, you can actually go there physically and do it, right? So that is what is happening today in the real estate space. It is also a place for collaboration. So there's a picture of what Microsoft have done. They've they have a platform called Teams, as you know, for collaboration. So they have built a new platform wherein one can actually build an avatar of themselves and can be on this platform. And one can also join, like how we are doing today, right? So you can either have your avatar or you can join virtually like this, right? So the whole objective is trying to create an option for their customers, for their employees to collaborate and give better experiences for them. Travel experiences, again, the picture of the Egyptian tombs. So there are platforms today where before you actually embark on a tour to Egypt, you can actually get that virtual feel of how the tomb was like before you actually buy your tickets. So there are companies who are building platforms like this. Now, when you look at education and learning, I think a great opportunity for schools and universities, colleges, to really leverage the power of the metaverse to make it a lot more immersive for students to learn. Because you would all perhaps agree that when anything is represented in visual format, in video format, our ability to retain concepts is much more better as opposed to just reading it in text, right? Similarly, in fitness, I'm going to share about a startup which is trying to improve and enhance somebody who's really a fitness freak, right? One can actually wear a virtual reality headset. One can actually figure out or create a kind of an environment. One can actually feel as though you are running across, the beach or maybe in a mountain range. So you can actually create that environment for you. You can have a situation where you can even have some of your friends, on that platform running. So that makes it a lot more fun. Then there is also music concerts, which are now happening on the metaverse. I wanted to give you the example of Epic Games, well known for building what is called Fortnite. And about a year and a half back, in one of their music concerts, a well-known singer and actress, Ariana Grande, she attracted, I think, more than 10 or 15 million people to her concert. And in the process, she actually made about $20 million. Now, Metaverse is also a place where one can actually discover what friends are doing, right? We are aware of this app called Clubhouse, available on both iOS and Android. One can actually use that app to get into a particular chat room. You can choose the topic that you want, discuss, come out of it, right? So it is a place where you want to discover new content, new friends. So the content is also completely community driven. So it is a place to discover new friends, new experiences. Example I wanted to share is how Microsoft, they are really betting big on the metaverse. So they have acquired this well-known player called Blizzard. They are in the gaming space, and Microsoft had announced that they are acquiring them for $69 billion. $69 billion. The transaction is not through yet. It is going through approvals. But just wanted to highlight how some of the big players are really wanting to bet big on the metaverse and are willing to spend. Now, the other important dimension being that metaverse is the place for the creators, right? So today, one can create content and use the metaverse to also amplify that content, right? And one more important dimension that is, it is just not content that is created by people. As you interact with others, the content gets enhanced, right, as you converse with other people in the community, right? So in the creator economy, and I'm going to touch upon this a little later, the creators are going to get a lot more bang for their buck. Okay, and thanks to platforms like this, which will really give users a much better experience as they consume that content. Now, the other important aspect of metaverse is the spatial computing aspect, right? So any object, any digital object which is displayed in 3D format gives a completely different experience for people, right? So there are players like Unity, a well-known company which builds real-time 3D projects for various industries. So, and they're also giving users the ability to create games and experiences in 3D. So when you have games in 3D or experiences in 3D, that makes it a lot more enriching, right? There's another company called Unreal. So they have a real-time 3D creation tool, right? Again, that is developed by Epic Games, right? So the whole objective is that when you're actually using 3D, the whole experience for the end user is going to be a lot more different. Now, decentralization. Now, this is a topic in itself. It's a very, very vast topic, but I'll just take a couple of minutes to kind of cover this, right? So if you just look at the previous web versions, right, web 1.0 and 2.0, we are still to a certain extent in web 2.0, where you had people who created content. You had certain control of your content. I wouldn't say that you don't have control, but you had certain control of your content. But it is the web 2.0 today as it exists. I would say it's controlled by some of the big tech players, right? Now with web 3.0, it's going to be different. As a user, you would have a lot more control of your content. You have an opportunity to monetize it, and then you can have things like a blockchain which is running, which is completely decentralized, right? And NFTs, all that come into play. So you can have decentralized apps. It is completely distributed. It is open. You have no central authority to control, right? So in this whole decentralized world that we're going to live in, the whole buyer-consumer relationship is going to change. Now, talking of access into metaverse, now one can use VR headsets to get into the metaverse. It's going to be completely virtual. One can use augmented reality. But the real democratization of metaverse would happen when you and I are able to use our smartphones, are able to use our PCs to get into the metaverse, right? Because the cost of virtual reality headsets still are on the higher side. It will take a while before we'll see cost of that coming down. So there is a lot of evolution happening, a lot more technology that is going into making it a lot more cheaper, but that's going to take some time. But until such time, we really need to leverage the power of our own smartphones and PCs. And that would mean the phones have to get a lot more powerful, right? So a lot more compute and processing needed. You'll need very strong graphical processing units, GPUs within systems. And today there are brain-computer interfaces that are available. Now, in context of human interfaces, I just wanted to give you the example of a company called Reimagining. I had a chance to meet the founder of this company 2 days back at an event in Mumbai. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to provide a platform. And this is an example of an automotive company which they have done a project for, where instead of going to the showroom for the first time to see the different models, the first step in the whole buying process can be done virtually, right? So here, the picture that you see here is of an avatar of a sales agent in a showroom. And as a consumer, I'm actually sitting in the comfort of my home, and I can either use my phone or my PC to see the car. Okay? Yeah, I'll stop the video here. But when anyone wants to buy a new car, the first step, obviously, you do a lot of research. You will get recommendations from your friends. You'll probably do a lot of browsing, maybe check out some magazines. But eventually, you will want to go to the dealer's showroom and see how the car is, eventually do a test drive. But some of those steps you can actually cut down, right? And there are a lot of the brands, you name any brand, BMW, even Maruti for that matter, are now building, these shopping platforms where one can actually go there and see the car in this format as you see, right? So you kind of cut down 1 or 2 steps in your buying process. So once you select, then you can perhaps go to the dealer's showroom and check out the car and maybe do a test drive, right? Now some Web 3.0 technologies that would influence the metaverse. The first thing which I wanted to share is non-fungible tokens. Now, NFTs, as they're called, they are basically digital assets. Okay, and you can have a digital asset of a tweet. It can be of a piece of music. It can be a piece of an art. And here I wanted to share with you a couple of years back a piece of art by a guy called Mike Winkelmann, also called Beeple. His digital art, which is basically a collage of multiple images, that was, as an NFT, was sold for a mind-blowing $69 million. Okay, Jack Dorsey, who is the founder of Twitter, his first tweet was converted into an NFT and sold for a few $1,000,000, right? So non-fungible tokens today is one form by which brands can actually engage with their customers. And I'm going to give you some examples, because here NFTs would give somebody complete ownership. And when you have an NFT, it gives you confirmation that whatever you're buying, the digital asset is authentic. Okay, and it's all running on an Ethereum blockchain. And blockchain, as you know, is a digital database, the ledger, where all computing nodes are connected through blocks. And once you have a transaction recorded on the blockchain, it is immutable, right? You can't change it. Then the concepts like smart contracts, which are widely used today in industry, when you have say, in supply chain, when you have multiple stakeholders involved, a buyer, seller, shipper, a logistics provider, and with so many stakeholders, and there's a lot of paper that is involved. One paper gets missed, there might be a delay in shipment. Today, you can actually have all those transactions recorded on the blockchain, and you can actually have what's called smart contract. So it's a self-executing contract. Whatever terms are there between the buyer and seller, that is all encoded into lines of code. So the moment the shipment happens, automatically the contract term gets executed, and the payment is automatically made. And then there are some concepts like decentralized autonomous organizations. Now, we all know of regular organizations that have got a structure. You have a board, you have a CEO, and a structure under the CEO. In the case of a decentralized autonomous organization, every user is an equal stakeholder in that company. Okay, and we are all given voting rights, right? So again, this is a very vast topic. I'm not going to go into the details of this, but this is another important dimension. Having talked about decentralization and some of the aspects of it, when you look at the metaverse, I think what is also important is to understand that you really need very good infrastructure to be able to host all these wonderful platforms, right? So today what's happening is the computer chips are getting faster and denser, right? You can pack a lot more transistors in a chip today. You need very powerful cloud systems. You also need very good networks, right? So for example, if I'm going to connect to a platform, a metaverse platform, which is on the cloud, I'm sitting at home, I really need a network which has very, very low latency, extremely reliable, and very fast speeds. And 5G today promises that, right? Your latency is going to be less than 10 milliseconds. So if you really want augmented reality, virtual reality kind of applications to work, then the latency, which is time taken for a packet to go from one point to the other, that has to be less than 20 milliseconds. Only then you will get that really good experience. Otherwise, if your latency is higher, then you will actually, after wearing that headset for some time, you actually feel very uneasy. And the speeds that 5G is promising, 400 megabits per second and higher. So there you're talking about downloading an ultra high definition movie maybe in a few seconds, right? So 5G is going to definitely play a big part when you look at the infra layer of the metaverse. Now, having covered some of the characteristics, the layers, I wanted to highlight how the metaverse can really be an opportunity that brands, enterprises can really leverage. McKinsey says that it can generate up to 5 trillion in value by 2030, and there are others who have given somewhat very similar figures. Now, if you look at enterprises, large enterprises, what would be the biggest monetization opportunities for enterprises as they look at leveraging the metaverse? One important aspect is how they can improve employee experience, right? And this is a very, very important dimension, improving employee experience, because if you are able to improve employee experience, that they are bound to really, help your customers better, right? An employee whose experience is really good, it increases their loyalty, and it is bound for them to really, treat their customers well, right? So you can expect them to do really well, right? So how you reimagine learning and development today, you can have metaverse as a platform to onboard employees. In fact, Accenture did that. I gave you the example of Microsoft platform. It's called Mesh, where you can have an augmented workplace collaboration, right? So employee experience is one aspect of it, right? You treat your customers, you treat your employees well, they obviously treat your customers well, and when you treat your customers well, then obviously it has an impact on your revenues and profitability. The second and most important dimension being that your whole engagement with customers, right? So Metaverse is another platform for marketers to leverage, right? So virtualized sales channels. I just gave you that example of how sitting in the comfort of your home, you can actually get into a virtual showroom of a guy selling automobiles, right? It is another channel for customer support. Okay, so you have multiple channels today. One can actually go to an app. One can actually call a customer on the phone. One can go to the website and register a ticket. The Metaverse is another platform or another channel now for customers to engage with the brand. Then from an enterprise standpoint, they're dealing with multiple suppliers. So supplier engagement and collaboration, again, Metaverse can be an option for them. You can actually use Metaverse to create what's called digital twins. So digital twin is a virtual replica of a physical asset or a process or a system. So one can build a digital twin of a product. One can build a digital twin of a complete supply chain, right? And then you feed real-time data from a real environment into the digital twin model, and then you can do optimization, right? Enterprises today, there are brands which are leveraging that. I'm going to share the example of BMW a little later. Now, talking of how Metaverse can impact industry, and here I wanted to give the example of automotive, because in the automotive industry, before a car is actually built or made, there is a need for all the stakeholders, right? So the guys who design it, the production guys, and a lot of these stakeholders, the guys who are involved in design, to collaborate, right? And especially if it's a global brand, when you have people across the world, you can actually use Metaverse as a platform to collaborate, okay? Secondly, I gave you the example of virtual showrooms, where you can actually use, like BMW is one example, Maruti set up one virtual showroom. You can also simulate autonomous vehicles, right? So autonomous vehicles today, the early days, they are currently, it's basically driverless vehicles. They are used in controlled environments, but you can actually have a simulation of autonomous vehicles and see how it might perform in, say, in a real world environment, say in a street, in a particular city, and so on, right? So, and talking of how Metaverse is impacting the auto industry, I wanted to give you the example of BMW. And BMW is a company that has always been at the forefront when it comes to adoption of technology, okay? So one use case which they're doing is they're building a digital twin of all their factories. They have about 31 factories globally, and they're actually building the digital twins of 31 odd factories on what is called Omniverse. Omniverse is a platform which NVIDIA, you probably would know, is a well-known name in making GPUs, graphical processing units, right? So 31 digital twins of the factories are now built on Omniverse, and that is giving them a platform where the global teams can collaborate, they can design, plan, they can also optimize all their manufacturing processes in real-time 3 dimension, right? So anything in 3D is definitely going to have an impact. And after they have done this, they started to see a 30% improvement in planning efficiency. Second thing is that they are also giving the Metaverse as a platform for employees to plan and engineer, could be for manufacturing systems, in product line designs, when you want to make iterations. So it's a very powerful platform for collaboration. Third thing is that they're using Metaverse to train people, right? So when new trainees come on board, and if they have to work in very hazardous environments, they can actually use virtual reality in combination with Metaverse to give them a feeling how it would work like in a real environment, right? So that's another use case. And finally, they're using the Metaverse as a platform to engage with customers, right? So customers of BMW today can create avatars, they can engage with the brand, they can build communities of their customers, and so on, right? So BMW have started to see the real impact, positive impact, after they have implemented Metaverse. I wanted to give the example of another large American telecom provider. I can't name the customer here, but they are leveraging Metaverse for customer support. And here I wanted to share some clear metrics, after they have implemented the Metaverse. For example, the first thing which they did is they created an AR/VR powered Metaverse lounge for customer service, right? So they sell a whole range of mobility products, connectivity services, and so on. And what they have done is, after they have implemented this Metaverse lounge for customers to now engage with the enterprise or with this with the telecom provider, they started to see an improvement in the CSAT scores, customer satisfaction scores, almost a greater than 85% improvement in that. Second thing is that all of us use telecom services, and when we have a challenge either with a broadband connection at home or maybe with the phone itself, you would ideally want the problem to be solved in the first call itself, right? So here what they started to see is, after they have used this Metaverse launch, there was a greater than 95% improvement in first call resolution. That's very, very high. Second thing is, they are also leveraging AI and machine learning to understand customer sentiments, right? So they built analytics platform, and they are trying to find out what the customer sentiments are, because in the telecom industry, which is very, very competitive, what really happens is people can easily switch from one provider to the other, right? Here, what they have found is that after they have implemented this, they started to see less churn, right? Customers are sticking to that service provider, and they saw less than 5% abandon rate. And that is giving them a lot more cross-sell and upsell opportunities, because it's easier to sell to an existing customer than to acquiring a new customer. So this is another example. Now, the question now for all marketers is, how do you define your Metaverse marketing goals? Okay. The first question for the marketing organization of any enterprise, whether they are selling to the consumers or they are selling to enterprise B2B or B2C, is, why do you want to be part of the Metaverse, right? You just don't want to be in the Metaverse for the heck of it. You need to be asking why you need to be part of it, right? So you need to know, are you going to use the Metaverse to create awareness about your products and services among your new audience? Is that your goal? Is your goal to promote loyalty? That's one more. Do you want to spark some innovation in your marketing team? Because all these large organizations have marketing teams, and they are, of course, using digital marketing techniques to reach out. But do you want to give them some spark by leveraging Metaverse as a platform which they can consider to reach out to the customers? So these are clear Metaverse marketing goals. Secondly, you need to identify the right platform that can provide the best opportunity. And there are lots of these platforms available today, right? So you have Roblox, well-known multiplayer gaming platform. They have gone beyond gaming now. You have Decentraland. You have Horizons World from Facebook, right? So you need to choose the right platform. And, having chose the right platform, you must also have an option in the future where it is not possible yet, but for platforms to interoperate, right? So there should be the possibility, say, if you're on Roblox and your customer is on the Roblox, for him to also move his avatar or even move to a Decentraland, right? So that platform interoperability is not possible today, but one has to be conscious of that fact. Second thing is, you want to also design experiences, to your target audience. And, customers today, when they see the brands in Metaverse, who are in the Metaverse, they see them as innovative, okay? And when you're on the Metaverse, when a brand is on the Metaverse, you kind of raise the bar higher for the end consumer, for their customers, because they believe that because you're on the Metaverse, you can actually offer a lot more innovative experiences, right? So that is one important aspect. The second aspect is that your target audience, okay, Roblox, which is a well-known gaming platform, they have about 50 million active users on a given day coming on their platform, and more than 67% of those 50 million users are under 16 years of age. So your whole demographics is changing, right? So you're targeting Gen Z, Gen Alpha, right? And they have, a whole sort of expectations, right? So how are you going to deliver to that audience, right? And again, choosing the right platform becomes very, very important, right? So one needs to make sure that it is an ideal blend that you have, right? You can use Metaverse as one of the avenues, a channel to engage with the customers, but that has to also be coupled with your traditional advertising. You're also using digital marketing techniques, right? So one needs to have the right blend. The other important aspect is it is also about experimentation with various money-making models, because one needs to leverage Metaverse to eventually make money, right? Having spent so much on the platform, you got to make money. It has to be monetized. And so there are brands which are trying to leverage Metaverse to really make money. I just want to give the example of Gucci, a well-known Italian brand, well-known for fashion. They have sold a digital version of a bag, one of their physical bags, for $4,000, which is much more than the physical item. Okay, and there are customers who are willing to buy it, right? So the whole direct to avatar sales of virtual goods, because today the virtual goods economy is almost like $54 billion. That's massive as per a McKinsey report, right? So brands have to see how they can actually make money. And in fact, Nike also, they've launched their NFTs of their sneakers. It's called Nike Crypto Kicks. Okay, and that cost of that kicker, that sneaker is higher compared to actually a physical shoes. The other aspect for the marketers to consider is how are you going to leverage and partner for Metaverse capabilities. Now, many of these large enterprises today might try to build capability inside, to really, build use cases and all that. But the real value will come when you are able to, connect with the external ecosystem. And that's exactly what Roblox did. So Roblox, they're actually built about 100,000 developers. They built a community of 100,000 developers. And all these developers are actually building content, are trying to help Roblox in building experiences which they can use to engage with their customers, right? So you really need to see what skills you have inside. If you don't have those skills, it's always nice to extend, to connect with the external ecosystem, to bring that outside in perspective and to partner with them. Because today we are living in an ecosystem world. One needs to have these partner ecosystems built very strongly, right? So innovation can be driven a lot when you can actually have partners or people, startups especially, who can bring in that dimension. The other important thing is how do you plan for risks for the brand? So there was an example of a brand, I can't name that, but they wanted to launch new products. And with great fanfare, they did a lot of advertising, set up a time and date when they're going to launch that brand on the Metaverse. And lo and behold, fans had a problem. Their customers had a problem getting into that platform. They had a big problem because they didn't size the number of users, and they had a challenge in getting customers, access into that platform, right? So need to plan what if that happens, right? So those things are something which they need to understand. And finally, how do you measure marketing success, right? So today, how do you measure marketing success? How many leads you get? How many people coming into your website? How many downloads you have? How many you're converting? If you're posting on social media, how many likes, shares, and so on, right? So with the Metaverse, one really needs to come up with new engagement metrics. So there's no playbook today in terms of how you measure marketing success. Some of it is there, some of the metrics which I shared, where you can improve CSAT, reduce churn, and so on. But this is something which is evolving. Now, what are some of the global brands? If you just see this slide here, the brands which are entering the Web 3.0 space, right? So you name any big brand, right from 2021 onwards, and even last year, some of the big brands are there today. trying to leverage the Web 3.0 space. And when you talk about Web 3.0, it could be using NFTs, it can be virtual showrooms and so on. But I just wanted to highlight that many of these big brands are really seeing real value when it comes to Metaverse. And why are they wanting to get into the Metaverse, or why are they wanting to look at Web 3.0? I think the answer is very, very simple, because when you start leveraging Web 3.0, it kind of signals that you are progressive and innovative, right? So it enhances your brand image. Secondly, it's also engaging existing customers, because you want to retain customers, you want to ensure that their loyalty increases, you want to build communities, right? And as I mentioned earlier, you want to acquire these new customer groups, because the demographics have changed, a lot more Gen Z. So how do you engage these customers? And in this context, I just wanted to share, why Facebook changed the name from Facebook to Meta almost 2 years back. What Facebook noticed was that they have about 2.8 odd billion people on the Facebook platform, and they found that the engagement of their customers with Facebook, that was actually coming down. And all of you all know that large chunk of Facebook revenues comes from advertising. Now, because engagement with Facebook was coming down, that meant their advertising revenue was coming down. And hence Facebook was wondering what should they do to improve engagement with their end customers, the different genres of customers. And that's when they bet big on Metaverse. They changed the name from Facebook to Meta. They invested $10 billion in Horizon Worlds. And it will take a while for them to really see the return coming in. But that was the big objective. And ever since Facebook changed from Facebook to Meta, we started to see a lot more activity happening, right? A lot of venture capital, a lot of private equity investment has come into Metaverse startups and so on. And the whole objective is to monetize Web 3.0, right? So you want additional revenues, you want to increase customer lifetime value. You also want to reduce cost of fraud and fakes, right? Thanks to NFT technology today, which is running on blockchain, you can actually figure out whether a product is fake or whether it is authentic. Now, some quick examples of what some of the global brands are doing. Now, here is Nike, which is on Roblox, right? Well-known platform. So they are now starting to engage with their customers on Roblox. Banks also are getting into the bandwagon, so to speak. So here, JP Morgan, one of the first multinational bank to get onto the Metaverse. Gucci, I shared about it. So they created a Gucci store on the Metaverse. Accenture, 2021, during the pandemic, at that point in time, 2,000 odd employees were onboarded on Metaverse. They created a platform wherein the employees can actually build digital avatars of themselves, and they actually used Metaverse for that. NFTs, again, many brands are getting into that space, non-fungible tokens. You name any industry, whether it's automotive, whether you look at food and beverage, you look at entertainment, fashion, hospitality, they're all, they're launching NFTs. And here I wanted to share what Mahindra and Mahindra are doing. So Mahindra and Mahindra, they launched NFTs of their Thar vehicles last year, and that fetched 26 lakhs. Now, these are NFTs, it's not the real vehicles, but the whole objective of any brand to launch non-fungible tokens are multifold. The first thing is that they want to build a community. So when you have people who buy NFTs, they want to build that community, right? Engage with them better. Secondly, those who buy these NFTs are given some special privileges. So they get an extra discount, maybe if they want to buy a real vehicle, maybe they're given a free test ride of a car. And so they give them those extra benefits. But other important thing is trying to take advantage of a human characteristic. When something which is unique, something which is different, we have that innate desire to own that, right? It gives us a lot of satisfaction that I own something unique, right? So NFTs are unique in that sense. So brands are trying to build very unique NFTs so that they can take advantage of that human characteristic of wanting to own something which is short in demand, right? Which is very short in supply and very high in demand, and obviously the cost goes up. Tanishq, they launched their wedding collection in Metaverse again a year back, So this is very, very interesting. Jewelry brand getting into it. Make My Trip, they sold vacation NFTs. MG Motors, they sold NFTs of some of their old vintage vehicles. So some of the images and videos of their old vintage vehicles, they converted that into an NFT, and they had the customers actually buying that. Other examples of Indian brands which are trying to, take advantage of the metaverse. I gave the example of Tanishq. ITC, they launched a chocolate brand called Fable at a metaverse wedding, which was on a startup called Tardiverse, who built that platform. So you had all these guests coming onto the platform, and the chocolates were actually delivered physically to the guests. Okay. Then you had CEAT. CEAT have created what is called CEAT Shopee, and that integrates with the e-commerce platform. So here what happens is that if you and I want to buy a tire, we can actually go into the CEAT Shopee, which is on the Metaverse platform. We can see the tires in 3 dimensions, different models. And then once you select it, the physical tire actually gets delivered home. Okay. So CEAT is betting big, which is part of the RPG group. Mahindra, I gave you the example. So they are working with their sister company Tech Mahindra, to build a lot more use cases on the metaverse. Tata Consumer Products, last year we are very close to Holi. Holi, as you know, is one of the well-known festivals, in India. So last year, Tata Consumer Products, in fact, next week is Holi, if I'm not mistaken. But last year during March, during the Holi festival, Tata Consumer Products, they hosted a Holi party on the Yug metaverse. Right. So many Indian brands are now wanting to get into this bandwagon. Yashoda Hospitals are the first healthcare company to get into metaverse. So they bought a plot of land on Decentraland, a well-known platform, again, for engaging with their customers. Hindustan Unilever Limited, just last week's news, they had their board meeting in the metaverse. The picture which you see on the bottom on the right side is the chairman, Mr. Sanjeev Mehta. He's put on a virtual reality headset, and he's actually feeling as though he's interacting with all his employees in physical, but it's actually virtual, right? So, and they are, this is just one example, but they are looking at the various use cases. As far as some of the startups which are there in India, quite a few startups are wanting to really exploit the potential of metaverse. WowXP.ai, in fact, they have built it for Hindustan Unilever Limited. WowXP.ai, a guy called Naveen Manasri, the CEO, I know him very well. So they are building these virtual collaborative rooms where brands can use it to have, meeting rooms and all that. Then there are other companies like NextMeet, Bolly Horrors, which is building Bollyverse. There's a company called Vonrare, which is building a food metaverse. There's another company, a startup called Zippy, Gurgaon-based company, which is building a metaverse for runners. Given that so many are very conscious of fitness today, they want to give better experiences for people who are really fitness freaks, right? So that's one. And if you just look at India, a significant growth in metaverse and Web 3.0 startups. So as per a NASSCOM report, as of last year, there were 450 plus Web 3.0 startups. And a lot of them are focusing on aspects related to decentralized finance. Decentralized finance, as you would know, is peer-to-peer sending of money without having to go through a central authority. A lot of use cases around that, entertainment, and so on. Now, one important area which I wanted to highlight is that India, the country, we have 75,000 odd people who have the talent with Web 3.0 skill sets, right? And 11% of the talent exists in India. And there's a huge focus from NASSCOM, which is the IT industry body, and amongst industry, obviously wanting to collaborate with the government as well to build a bigger talent pool, because we want to be the talent pool for the world when it comes to Web 3.0. Right? It's early days yet, but that's the larger objective. And I wanted to highlight some of the reasons why Metaverse has staying power. The first thing is that the technological advances that we are seeing today, right? So computing is getting a lot more powerful. The cost of computing is coming down. Networks are getting a lot more powerful. The cost of headsets, virtual reality headsets, that is likely to come down. So with all these advances that we are seeing in technology, it's going to be a lot more easier for people to use these, computing headsets, networks to really exploit the potential of the metaverse. A lot of investments are going into metaverse space. I gave the example of Facebook. the wider set of use cases. So unlike earlier, where most of the metaverse use cases were around gaming, media, and entertainment, now we are seeing a lot of wider set of use cases. For example, learning and development, digital twins, customer experience engagement, to engage customers better. So a lot of the use cases are growing now. And we are seeing this whole online commerce getting mainstream, right? So goods delivered virtually, that's growing massively, right? So it's taking advantage of this trend of commerce growing. Even in India, e-commerce is growing significantly, right? And that's why you find a lot of these large e-commerce players like Facebook, Amazon building a lot more warehouses, fulfillment centers, same-day delivery, and so on. And the other important thing is that the demographic tailwinds, right? So I gave the example of Roblox. 67% of their 50 million daily users are less than 16 years old, right? So the whole demographics is changing, right? And how do you cater to that? And that's definitely going to be a tailwind, which will definitely ensure metaverse adoption. And brand marketing and engagement are more consumer-led, right? So we are, you must have heard of influencers, micro-influencers. Like many brands really don't need to go to the film stars and sporting personalities to advertise about their brand, right? So you find many of these influencers, micro-influencers in smaller cities and smaller towns today who have a big Insta following, who have many users on their YouTube channel, right? So they are now influencers. They are now able to get a lot more monetization opportunities because of the content that they are creating, right? So that is getting a lot more consumer-led, and this is going to increase going forward. I want to conclude by saying that the point that metaverse is not to replace the physical. It's going to be a blend of the physical and digital, right? So one has to be really balanced and moderate in terms of its use and application. That is so important. Secondly, that when you look at regulations, interoperabilities, security, governance, that's still in the works, right? So that's going to take some time to evolve. So one has to be very conscious of that. And last point which I want to make is that given that metaverse is a coming together of multiple technologies, right? You have cloud, you have blockchain, you have augmented reality, virtual reality, 5G, all coming together. It is definitely going to throw open a lot of entrepreneurship and job opportunities, right? So this is definitely a technology to watch out for. I'm very, very bullish about this. So on that note, I would like to end my talk. The picture that you see here is an NFT of myself that NASCOM had created. Last year, I had a chance to speak at one of their events, which is Metaverse focused, and I was one of the panelists. So instead of giving a memento, they said that, okay, we'll give you an NFT of myself, which is actually on a blockchain. So on that note, I would like to end, and I'm happy to take questions.
Sir, we have one question from Dr. Lopa. Is there any use case related to cybersecurity?
Cybersecurity use case, I would say in case of cybersecurity, you can look at a use case where you might want to collaborate, especially if you have an attack which has happened, cyber attack, and you want to respond to that, and the need for people to come together to discuss how do you handle that threat. Maybe you can have a very good collaboration platform on the metaverse that can be used. I don't see right now a specific area where metaverse can be used for cybersecurity beyond just collaborating at this point in time, Dr. Lopa.
Sir, one more question from Dinesh Singh. Can you tell metaverse use case for news channel and monetization?
Oh yes, so news channels today, today they can use it. Most news channels today, they're using multiple channels to engage, right? So more if they're using television today to provide content, one option for them would be, and of course they are also on social media. Most of them are on YouTube. Most of them run YouTube channels. Most of them are Twitter. One can actually use metaverse also to give immersive experiences to the users. So you might probably feel as though you're in the studio, right? So metaverse can be used as an alternate channel today for the news channels, and it's early days, so it's brands are still experimenting. So that will it might probably take some time before they can use metaverse as an alternate channel. Yeah.
So a couple more use cases regarding metaverse medical and surgical use case, as well as
yes.
one more. Yeah, education cases.
Yeah, so metaverse for medical use cases. So for example, if you're wanting to train someone how to do surgeries, in fact, this has happened. One is training them on using virtual reality. They can actually be on the metaverse and get trained how to do surgeries, so that when they actually do it, they are much more better prepared. So that's one. Plus also for engaging with patients, because patient experience is so important, right? So one can actually be on the metaverse, and especially those medical practitioners who are new to the medical field, if they really want to see how they should engage with the patients, then they can use metaverse as a platform to really get trained on that, right? So definitely, and I gave the example of Yashoda hospitals in the healthcare space. They built a land on Decentraland. They bought a virtual land there, and they are now giving customers to come onto that platform to engage with customers, right? So they want to give immersive experiences to the customers. So that's another use case.
Sir, one more question from Ashish Chaudhary. What does the metaverse ecosystem consist of, particularly tools, technologies, service providers, consultants, and
so metaverse ecosystem is large. So I gave you the example first. One needs to see, for an enterprise, it doesn't make sense for them to build their own metaverse platform. It might as well use platforms which are already created, like Roblox, Decentraland, Sandbox, quite a few of these platforms. So at the basic level, one needs to create content, right? So you need to create immersive content. So there are players who build content. It can be 3D content like Unity. Some of them give the tools that are needed to build 3D content, right? So one is guys who build content. That's number one. Second, the infrastructure. When you look at the ecosystem, you need headsets. So supposing you want virtual reality experiences, then you need virtual reality headsets. Then there are AR, right? So HoloLens is one example. So one is the infra part. Then of course you need the telecom player, because that is important. You need 5G network to get that better experience, because you need low latency. Then you need the cloud, because all these platforms are on a distributed cloud. So the hyperscale providers like AWS, Amazon, they come into play. Then you have the gaming players who are providing gaming experiences, right? So and then you have platforms which provide discovery. I gave the example of the guys who built the club, the app which is an audio app on iOS and Android, right? So a lot of these players all have to come together, and even startups also can be part of the ecosystem. I gave the examples of somebody who are building foodverse, where one can get into the foodverse, see what food you want and have it delivered physically. So many startups are wanting to exploit the potential. So a lot of opportunity there for all stakeholders here.
one more question. How do you see adoption of metaverse tech in India, especially high ticket products? Why it is not picking up?
So see, it's going to take some time for adoption to pick up. I would say, in my view, having been in the industry for so many years, it might take easily 3 to 4 years before we see adoption getting a lot more better in India. It's very, very early days right now. So right now what's happening is only the big brands, big enterprises in India are experimenting with metaverse. I want to use the word experimenting because it will take some time before, after experimentation, they need to really, persevere with those experiments, and that monetization is going to take some time, right? But it's very important to identify the right set of use cases for enterprises. And it's very, very early days. Now, the real growth of metaverse would happen in India when smaller and medium enterprises also look at metaverse as a platform to engage with customers, suppliers, employees, and so on. And for that to happen, it's going to take a longer time, right? So that's why I said democratization of metaverse. It has to reach the hinterlands and of India and not just be confined to the elite. And for that, it will take easily 3 to 4 years, in my view.
Sir, one more question from Atul. Is there any list of easily available NFTs or metaverse tools which can be used to learn and build initial designs?
Yeah, so there are enough platforms available. So, for example, I'll probably can share that separately. But one can. There are NFT marketplaces. So, see, consumers would want to buy NFTs, right? To buy an NFT, the first and foremost thing is one needs to go to an NFT marketplace. That's number one. Second thing is that you need to also have a wallet and load that wallet with crypto to be able to buy NFTs. So one is buying of the NFTs. Second thing is that if you have created some content, see, an NFT is of value only if you're able to monetize that NFT, right? So you need to figure out what is that you want to create from an NFT standpoint. And first thing is, once you identify what you want to build, are they going to be buyers of that? So it has to be obviously appealing to the audience, right? So you can't go anywhere and see what you might probably get some ideas in terms of how you can build NFT. But here the human creativity becomes very, very important, because there are hundreds and different thousands of NFTs. So how are you going to stand out? That's going to be important. So the human creativity design, that's going to be an important factor. You can create your own. There's a question about create your own avatar like yours. Yeah, there are platforms where you can actually go take a picture of yourself. There are enough and more such platforms, so you can go there and have a digital avatar created of yourself, and you can then modify that avatar based on how you like it, right? So all it needs is a picture of yourself. So the one which I showed you in my last slide, I just sent a picture of myself to NASCOM and they created that. That's my digital avatar, which is like an NFT, which is there on the blockchain. But very easy for people. There are enough and more platforms that are available which are going to create avatars of yourselves. And you have the power to change how you want that avatar to look like. You can choose what fashion, what kind of clothes that you want on your avatar, and so
on. Sir, we'll take one more last question as time is up. So Sharad has asked, what will be used first for transaction on those metaverse showrooms, bitcoins or coupons like Roblox, etc.? What is your take on it? And coupons are high in numbers, but bitcoins are already running in few countries.
Yeah, so you have Bitcoin is one of the cryptocurrencies one can use. One can also use either. And see, cryptocurrencies today, there's this big fear that given it's so volatile, right? I mean, Bitcoin was $16,000 until last year. It was at one point in time $60,000 per Bitcoin, came down to 16,000, and is now back to 25. So there's a lot of volatility on the Bitcoin, on the cryptocurrency, so to speak. And in India, the challenge is that government, while you can use cryptocurrencies, we don't have regulations around use of cryptocurrency in India. And RBI have launched their digital rupee, right? So if we have a regulatory framework in India that would allow us to use, say, the digital rupee, which RBI would regulate. Digital rupee is there, but if RBI comes up with a very good regulatory framework, and if you are able to use that digital rupee to buy things on the metaverse, NFTs and virtual goods and all that, that will go a long way in driving adoption, because people still have the fear that I don't want to probably buy crypto given the volatility.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
There's one last question. Interoperability be a concern. So I think today metaverse platforms are not interoperable. So that's work in progress, because only when you have platforms, when you have Roblox that can seamlessly interoperate with other platforms like Decentraland and others, and if you have an option where you can seamlessly shift your avatar from one platform to the other, then that will definitely go a long way in driving adoption even more. But right now, it's still in the works. We don't have platforms that are interoperable. So just one more question, I think Ashish Chaudhary has asked, what are the skills needed for metaverse designing? And one more question is, Indian company Tata is using this metaverse technology, and where are they using? So Tata Consumer Products, they didn't launch any of their products or NFTs as of now. What they did last year is that they launched this part, Tata Consumer Products. I'm just giving the example of Tata Consumer Products. Tata Consumer Products wanted to have a platform where they can engage with their customers, and they used the Holi festival as the reason why they wanted to get their customers on board. But at this point in time, Tata Consumer Products or any other Tata company have not launched any NFTs yet. But having said this, Tata Consultancy Services, Tata, which is the IT arm of Tata Consultancy, Tata Group, they are now built a metaverse practice, and they are now trying to test out metaverse use cases. And once they test out metaverse use cases, NFT use cases, then very logical that the Tata Group companies would start wanting to experiment and start using it, right? So that's where it is from Tata Group standpoint. What was the other question? I gave
So the question is, what are the skills needed
skills.
for metaverse designing?
Yeah. So see that skills part, it depends on what your interest is, because as I mentioned towards the end, metaverse is a coming together of multiple technologies. You have to decide in what specific area that you want to focus on. Now, just look at blockchain. Now, blockchain is the platform on which your economic currency is running, right? So all your transactions are stored on the blockchain. And if you really want to, build apps which will work on the blockchain, one then obviously need to have skills in blockchain. If you want to build content in 3D format, then you need to figure out what skills you need to have to build 3D content. Then that's where you can take the help of Unity and so on, right? So that's one area. Then if you want to get into the area of like all these metaverse platforms are running on cloud, right? So you want to build some skills on cloud. That's one area. The other important area is you're dealing with humongous amount of data, right? So much of data being generated. Now, how are you going to leverage the data? How are you analyzing the data? How are you going to get those insights? So there's a huge opportunity for people in the data science, people who are in the AI and machine learning field, to really take advantage of this, because humongous amount of data is going to get generated, and that's why you need these cloud platforms to store all the data, to store it, compute and all that. So a lot of opportunities will be in the data space. How are you going to monetize that data, right? So one has to really figure out what your interest is, and you build your skills in that specific area: analytics, blockchain, and so on and so forth.
Sir, one more last question. Is 3D modeling skill required for UI designer to get into Meta?
3D modeling skill?
Required for UI designer to get into Meta? Yeah,
see, if you're from a UI UX perspective, which is so important, right? You want a user to have that good experience. And if you have tools that are available for a mobile app development company to be able to convert a digital object into 3D, then yes, I think there are. I may not have it off my hand, but there might be a few platforms which would allow you to convert 2D to 3D and improve your user interface and user experience, right? Because it's already available for PCs, and I'm sure it should be available for those who want to use mobile interface to get into Metaverse. That will make the experience a lot more enriching for those when you're interacting in 3D.
Sir, if you have time, one last question. If I want to start a business using Metaverse, what should be the starting point?
So I think the first starting point is, if you want to start a business in Metaverse, you need to identify what problem of an enterprise that you're going to solve, right? You have to figure out that first, right? And that applies to any technology, right? Whether it is IoT, AI, machine learning, or anything. What is the problem of your customer that you're trying to solve? Once you know what the problem they're trying to solve, then you have to build a use case for that, right? Build that use case, and then you can figure out how you're going to build the technology for that, right? So you don't find the technology and then to try to fit it into use case. You first find the use case problem statement, then you see how you can build the technology that can address that. I think that is the first starting point. And then once you build that technology, it could be Metaverse, it could be a combination of all these technologies coming together. Then you see how you can scale that, because no point in starting something where you can only do it in a limited way, right? What you build has to scale, and that's when your monetization would come in, right? So just to summarize, identify the use case, which industry you want to target, what problems that you're trying to address, and then you build your solution, which includes Metaverse for that.
Sir, I think that concludes the questions.
Okay, so thank you so much, Prakash and the TimesPro team, and thank you the audience, the entire audience, for taking time on a Saturday morning to hear me. See, I'm not a Metaverse expert, but in the last few years that I've been following the space, I've only shared some of the experience that I have gained interacting with Metaverse startups, interacting with organizations and all that. It is a space that is evolving. There is a huge potential for that. So I think the best is yet to come when you look at the metaverse. That's what I would like to end it.